My wife handed me divorce papers in the parking lot right after my mom's funeral. I signed without arguing. A week later, I learned my mom left me over $2 million, and my wife got nothing. I'm Daniel, 34 years old, elementary school teacher in Minnesota, 4th grade. Love my job, love the kids, but the pay is garbage. I make about $48,000 a year, which is enough to survive, but not exactly rolling in it. Been teaching for 8 years now. My mom, Helen, was a saint. Raised me and my sister Amanda by herself after Dad passed when I was 6. Mom worked 2 jobs most of my childhood. Secretary during the day, cleaning offices at night. Never complained once. Made sure we had everything we needed, even when it meant she went without. The thing about Mom that nobody knew except me and Amanda, she was brilliant with money. While working those jobs, she'd been investing every spare dollar since the 80s. Small amounts, nothing crazy but consistent. She bought rental properties in the 90s when they were cheap, invested in tech stocks before they exploded. By the time I was in college, she'd quietly built herself a substantial portfolio. She never showed it, though. Still drove a 15-year-old sedan, still clipped coupons, still lived in the same modest house she'd bought in 1987. Now, let me tell you about my ex-wife, Jessica. Met her 4 years ago at a friend's wedding. She was stunning. Long dark hair, perfect smile, worked as a real estate agent for luxury properties. She made good money, probably $120,000 a year on commission. The warning signs were there from day one, but I was an idiot who thought with parts of his anatomy that aren't the brain. First red flag, her family. Her parents lived in this massive house in an upscale suburb. Her dad owned a chain of car dealerships, and her mom didn't work, but spent her days at country clubs. They had that old money attitude where they looked down on anyone who worked a common job. At our first family dinner, her dad asked what I did for a living. When I said elementary school teacher, the temperature in the room dropped about 40 degrees. Teaching? Her mom repeated like I'd said I cleaned sewers. How noble of you. Jessica jumped in quickly, explaining how I was planning to move into administration soon, and how teaching was just a stepping stone. I wasn't planning any such thing, but I let it slide because I was trying to make a good impression. Her brother Kyle was even worse. He worked at their dad's dealership doing basically nothing and making 6 figures. Spent our entire first meeting bragging about his Audi and his condo downtown. When I mentioned I drove a 2009 Honda Civic, he actually laughed and said, "That's cute, like a starter car." But Jessica seemed different from her family. Or at least I thought she did. She'd tell me she didn't care about money, that what mattered was that I loved my job and was good at it. She'd say her family was materialistic, but she wasn't like that. Looking back, every word was a lie. We dated for a year before getting engaged. The proposal was simple. Took her to the park where we had our first date, got down on one knee with a ring I'd saved 6 months to buy. It wasn't huge, maybe half a carat, but it was what I could afford. Her reaction when she saw it, her smile faltered for just a second before she caught herself. Just a fraction of a second, but I saw it. Should have paid attention to that moment. Should have realized that the woman who didn't care about money was disappointed by a modest engagement ring. The wedding planning was a nightmare. Her parents wanted this massive country club event with 300 guests. I wanted something smaller and affordable. We compromised, meaning I gave in on everything because her parents were paying for most of it anyway. The guest list grew to 250 people, 200 of whom were her family's friends and business contacts. The venue was this ridiculous mansion with a price tag that made me nauseous. Her dress cost more than my car. Everything had to be perfect and impressive. My mom came to me 3 months before the wedding with an offer. She wanted to give me $30,000 toward the wedding expenses so I wouldn't feel completely steamrolled by Jessica's parents. I was shocked. That was way more than I thought Mom had to spare. "Mom, that's too much. I can't accept that." "Daniel, it's my money, and I want you to have a wedding you can be proud of, not just something her parents orchestrate." I used $15,000 of it to pay for the rehearsal dinner and my side of things. Put the other $15,000 in savings. Didn't tell Jessica about the full amount Mom gave me. Something told me to keep that quiet. Then came the prenup conversation. We were 3 months from the wedding when Jessica brought it up over dinner. Her family's lawyer had drawn up a prenuptial agreement they wanted us to sign. "It's just to protect both of us," she explained, sliding the document across the table. "My parents think it's smart given the family business and everything." I read through it. The terms were pretty straightforward. What each person brought into the marriage stayed theirs in case of divorce. No alimony unless the marriage lasted more than 10 years. Assets acquired during marriage would be split 50-50, but inheritances remained separate property. The thing that struck me was how heavily it favored her. It was clearly written, assuming she was the one with assets to protect. There were clauses about protecting her commission income, her future inheritance from her parents, her trust fund that I didn't even know she had. "Your parents really think we need this?" I asked. "It's just smart business. Besides, we're never getting divorced anyway. This is just a formality." Here's where I made a decision that ended up saving me. I told her I wanted my own lawyer to review it before I signed. She got defensive immediately, saying it was insulting that I didn't trust her family's lawyer, but I stood firm. If we were signing a legal document, I wanted someone looking out for my interests. Found a lawyer through a teacher friend, guy named Robert, who specialized in family law. He reviewed the prenup and gave me his assessment. "This document is designed to protect wealthy people from gold diggers. Your fiance's family clearly thinks you're the gold digger. But honestly, given your income disparity, this actually protects you too. If she divorces you, you don't owe her anything, and any inheritance you receive stays yours alone." That last part stuck with me. Any inheritance stays separate property. I signed it. Jessica was thrilled that I'd finally come around. Her parents seemed pleased that I'd done the right thing. The wedding went forward as planned. The marriage was fine for the first 6 months. Not great, not terrible, just fine. We lived in a decent two-bedroom apartment that we could afford on our combined income. Jessica kept working her real estate job, and I kept teaching, but slowly things started shifting. Jessica would make comments about my income, little digs that seemed like jokes, but had an edge to them. She'd complain that we couldn't afford nicer vacations because of my teaching salary. She'd point out houses her clients were buying and sigh about how we'd never be able to afford something like that. Her family was worse. Sunday dinners at her parents' house became exercises in passive-aggressive commentary about my career choices. Her dad would talk about Kyle's latest promotion or Jessica's biggest commission, then turn to me and ask how the ABCs were going. Her mom would show me pictures of her friends' kids, all in finance or medicine or law, and ask when I planned to move up in my career. I started dreading those dinners, started making excuses to skip them. Jessica would get angry, saying I was embarrassing her by not showing up to family events. I'd point out that her family spent the entire time insulting my career. She'd say I was being too sensitive. Mom noticed the change in me. She'd always liked Jessica, but had reservations about the family. About a year into my marriage, she pulled me aside after a visit. "Are you happy?" she asked directly. I wanted to say yes, wanted to believe I was happy. But sitting there looking at my mom, I couldn't lie to her. I don't know. Sometimes it feels like Jessica married who she thought I could become, not who I actually am. Mom nodded slowly. "That's not a marriage, sweetheart. That's a disappointment waiting to happen." She was right, of course. Mom was always right about people. Things got worse in year 2. Jessica started talking more seriously about me switching careers. She'd found a job posting for an assistant principal position that paid $75,000, sent it to me with a message saying, "This could be perfect for you." I wasn't interested in administration. I liked being in the classroom with kids, but she kept pushing, kept sending job listings, kept talking about how we could finally afford a house if I'd just be practical about my career. Her commissions were growing. She was pulling in close to $150,000 by this point, but instead of that taking pressure off, it made things worse. Now she resented that she was the breadwinner while I was content making teacher wages. The fights started, not screaming matches, but cold arguments where she'd list all the things we couldn't do because I refused to advance my career. Couldn't buy a house in the neighborhood she wanted, couldn't take the European vacation her friends were taking, couldn't join the country club where her parents were members. I'd point out that we were doing fine financially. We had savings, no debt except my small student loans, and we weren't struggling. But doing fine wasn't enough for Jessica. She wanted more. Mom's health started declining around this time. She was 68 and had been diagnosed with early-stage heart disease. Nothing immediately life-threatening, but enough to make us all worry. Amanda and I started taking turns staying with her on weekends to help with errands and appointments. Jessica hated it, said I was spending too much time at Mom's house, said Mom was capable of taking care of herself. When I explained that Mom had spent decades taking care of us, and now it was our turn to help her, Jessica rolled her eyes and said I was being dramatic. The breaking point in our marriage came about 6 months ago, just after our 3rd anniversary. Jessica had been increasingly distant, working longer hours, taking calls in the other room. Classic signs, but I was too busy worrying about Mom to notice the pattern. Mom's heart condition had worsened. She was in and out of the hospital for monitoring. The doctor said her heart was weaker than they'd hoped, and she might need surgery. Amanda and I were terrified. Jessica's reaction when I told her, well, she lived a good life. At least she's had time to get her affairs in order. Mom wasn't dying. She was sick. There's a difference, but Jessica was already writing her off. That's when I started finding the receipts. Expensive dinners at restaurants I'd never been to. Hotel room charges on our joint credit card that Jessica explained away as client meetings. Flowers purchased that I never received. I'm not an idiot. I knew what was happening, but I was so focused on Mom that I couldn't deal with my crumbling marriage at the same time. So, I just let it happen. Stopped asking questions. Stopped caring about where Jessica was or who she was with. Mom noticed before I said anything. One weekend when I was staying with her, she looked at me across the kitchen table and said, "She's cheating on you, isn't she?" I didn't even try to deny it, just nodded. "What are you going to do about it?" Mom asked. "I don't know. Deal with it after you're better. I can't handle both crises at once." Mom reached across the table and took my hand. "Daniel, I need to tell you something. I've been meeting with my estate lawyer, getting everything organized in case something happens. I've done well with my investments over the years, better than you realize. When I'm gone, you and Amanda will be taken care of. Very well taken care of." She wouldn't tell me exact numbers, just said she'd built up a comfortable amount and that we shouldn't worry about money when the time came. I assumed she meant maybe $200,000 or $300,000 split between me and Amanda. Enough to be helpful, but not life-changing. I had no idea. 3 months ago, Mom had the surgery. It went as well as could be expected, but she never really recovered. Her heart was just too weak. She spent 6 weeks in and out of consciousness with Amanda and me taking shifts at the hospital. Jessica visited twice. Both times she stayed less than an hour, spending most of the time on her phone, checking work emails. The nurses thought she was Amanda's friend, not my wife. That's how disconnected she was from my family. Mom passed away on a Tuesday morning. I was holding her hand when she went. She squeezed my fingers one last time and whispered, "You're going to be okay. Better than okay. Trust me." Then she was gone. The grief was crushing. I took a week off work, which Jessica complained about because I was wallowing. She wanted me back to normal immediately so we could move forward with our lives. Like my mother dying was an inconvenience to her schedule. The funeral was planned for the following Saturday. I spent the week making arrangements, writing the eulogy, choosing the music Mom would have wanted. Amanda helped as much as she could while dealing with her own grief. Her husband was incredibly supportive, taking care of their kids so she could focus on the arrangements. Jessica was absent for all of it. Said she had important client meetings, said she couldn't reschedule, said Mom would understand that work comes first. Friday night before the funeral, I was lying in bed trying to sleep when Jessica came in late from another supposed client dinner. She sat on the edge of the bed and I knew something was coming. "We need to talk," she said. "Great." The 4 worst words in the English language. "I'm not happy. I haven't been happy for a long time. This marriage isn't working. I think we should get divorced." I just stared at her. My mom had died 4 days ago. The funeral was tomorrow and she was asking for a divorce right now. "Can this wait until after the funeral?" I asked. "I think it's better to be honest about where we stand. I've already spoken to a lawyer. The papers are being drawn up. We can make this quick and painless if we both agree to the terms." The terms? The prenup is pretty clear. We each keep what we brought in. We split the joint savings 50-50. The apartment is a rental, so we just need to figure out who moves out. I sat up and looked at her. Really looked at her. She had the decency to look surprised. "What? The guy you've been seeing? Who is he?" "I don't know what you're talking about, Jessica. I've known for months. I just didn't have the energy to deal with it while Mom was dying. So, who is he?" She was quiet for a long moment. Then she shrugged. "His name is Brett. He's a commercial real estate developer. We met through work." "How long?" "Does it matter?" "How long, Jessica?" "About 8 months. 8 months. She'd been cheating on me for 8 months while my mother was dying. He treats me like I deserve to be treated. He's ambitious. He's successful. He's not content being a school teacher for the rest of his life. And there it was, the real issue. Not that I'd done anything wrong, but that I wasn't successful enough for her. Wasn't ambitious enough. Wasn't making enough money. "Fine," I said simply. "If you want a divorce, we'll get divorced. But can we please wait until after I bury my mother to discuss the details? I think it's better to have everything out in the open now." "Better for who?" "You. Because it's sure not better for me to be dealing with this right now." She stood up. "I'll sleep in the guest room tonight. I've already told the lawyer to have the papers ready by Monday. We can sign them next week." She walked out. I sat there in the dark, wondering how my life had fallen apart so completely in less than a week. The next morning was the funeral morning. I put on my suit, wrote some notes for the eulogy, and headed to the church where the service was held. Amanda was already there with her family, greeting people as they arrived. The church filled up quickly. Mom had a lot of friends from her years in the community, her former coworkers, neighbors, people from church, my fellow teachers who'd heard about her passing. It was standing room only by the time the service started. Jessica showed up 15 minutes late, slipping into a pew in the back. Didn't sit with me, didn't acknowledge me, just sat there checking her phone. The service was beautiful. The pastor spoke about Mom's generosity and kindness. Amanda gave a tearful speech about what an incredible mother she'd been. Then it was my turn. I stood at the podium and looked out at all the people who'd come to say goodbye to my mom. Started talking about her strength, her work ethic, the sacrifices she'd made for Amanda and me, how she'd worked 2 jobs to keep us fed and clothed, how she'd never complained, never asked for recognition, just did what needed to be done. I was maybe 5 minutes into the eulogy when I saw Jessica stand up and walk toward the exit. She was leaving in the middle of my speech, walking out of my mother's funeral while I was eulogizing her. I paused mid-sentence, watching her go. The whole church noticed. There was an uncomfortable shifting in the pews as people processed what they were seeing. Amanda's face went red with anger. But I just continued, finished the eulogy, talked about how Mom always said family was the most important thing, and how she taught me what real loyalty looked like. The irony wasn't lost on anyone who just watched my wife walk out. After the service, we went to the cemetery for the burial. It was a smaller group, just family and close friends. Jessica wasn't there. Didn't even pretend to care enough to come to the graveside service. We got through the burial. People came up to offer condolences, share memories of Mom, tell me what an amazing woman she'd been. I was on autopilot, thanking people mechanically while my brain tried to process the fact that my wife had walked out of the funeral. After the burial, there was a reception at a nearby restaurant. Amanda had organized it, and it was nice. People eating, sharing stories, celebrating Mom's life. I was standing by the buffet table when my phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. "I'm in the parking lot. We need to talk now." I walked outside to find Jessica leaning against her car, holding a manila envelope. She looked impatient, like I was keeping her from something important. "Sorry to interrupt your day," she said sarcastically, "but I need you to sign these." She handed me the envelope. I opened it to find divorce papers fully completed, just needing signatures. "You couldn't wait one more day. You had to bring these to my mother's funeral. Perfect timing, actually. One less thing to worry about now that your mom's gone. You won't be distracted by taking care of her anymore. We can both move on with our lives." I just stared at her. This person I'd married had just said my mother's death was convenient timing for a divorce. Sign them. Let's just get this over with. You know what? She was right. Why drag it out? I pulled out a pen, leaned against her car, and signed every page that needed my signature. Didn't read the fine print. Didn't negotiate. Just signed. She looked surprised that I'd done it so quickly. "That's it? You're not going to fight this? Why would I fight it? You clearly don't want to be married to me. You've been seeing someone else for 8 months. You just called my mother's death convenient timing. I'm not going to beg you to stay." I handed the papers back to her. She took them, looking oddly disappointed that I hadn't put up a fight. "I'll have my lawyer file these Monday morning. You should start looking for a new apartment. I'm keeping our place since I make more money and can afford it on my own." "Fine, take the apartment. Take whatever you want. I don't care anymore." She got in her car and drove away. I stood there in the parking lot in my funeral suit, officially separated from my wife on the day I buried my mother. Rock bottom, right? Except I didn't know what was coming. The reading of Mom's will was scheduled for Monday afternoon. Amanda and I met at the lawyer's office, a guy named Frank, who'd been handling Mom's estate planning for years. Jessica had texted me that morning saying she was filing the divorce papers. So, by the time I showed up at Frank's office, my marriage was officially over. Frank was this older gentleman with kind eyes and a gentle manner. He expressed condolences about Mom, then got down to business. Your mother was very specific about her wishes. She revised her will several times over the years, but the final version was completed about 3 months ago. 3 months ago, right after Mom's surgery, when she knew her time might be limited, Frank opened a folder and began reading. The first items were sentimental. Mom's jewelry to Amanda, her photo albums to be split between us, personal effects distributed to various friends and family members. Then he got to the real estate. Helen owned 3 rental properties, the house she lived in and 2 others she purchased as investments in the 1990s. Current market value of all 3 properties combined is approximately $1.1 million. These are to be split equally between Daniel and Amanda. Amanda and I exchanged shocked glances. $1.1 million in real estate. Mom had told us she'd done well with investments, but this was beyond anything we'd imagined, Frank continued. Additionally, Helen had investment accounts with various firms, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, some cryptocurrency investments she'd made in recent years. The combined value of these accounts is approximately $2.7 million to be split equally between Daniel and Amanda. The room started spinning. $2.7 million in investments. My mom, who'd worked as a secretary and janitor, had accumulated $2.7 million. There's also a life insurance policy valued at $500,000 to be split equally, and various bank accounts totaling approximately $400,000 also to be split equally. Frank looked up from the papers. All told, Helen's estate is valued at approximately $4.7 million. After taxes and legal fees, you're each looking at inheriting roughly $2.1 million. I couldn't breathe. My mom had left me $2.1 million. Amanda was crying. Happy tears, shocked tears, grateful tears, all mixed together. Her husband put his arm around her, looking equally stunned, but my brain was doing math. Specifically, I was thinking about the prenup I'd signed 3 years ago, the prenup that stated inheritances remained separate property, the prenup Jessica had insisted on to protect her family's wealth. Frank wasn't done. Helen also left specific instructions. She was aware of Daniel's marital difficulties. He pulled out a sealed letter addressed to me in Mom's handwriting. Frank handed it to me but kept talking. She wanted to ensure that in the event of a divorce, this inheritance would be completely protected. She worked with me to structure everything so that not a single dollar could be claimed as marital property. The prenup you signed helps, but she went further. Everything is in trusts with specific clauses preventing any spousal claims. I opened the letter with shaking hands. My dearest Daniel, it began in Mom's neat handwriting. If you're reading this, I'm gone, and I'm so sorry I can't be there with you. But I need to know something. I've been watching your marriage for the past few years, and I've seen how Jessica treats you. I've seen how her family looks down on you. I've seen you dimming your own light to make her feel brighter. That's not what love looks like, sweetheart. Real love builds you up. It doesn't tear you down for not making enough money or not being ambitious enough. You are exactly who you're supposed to be. Teaching those kids, making a difference in their lives. That's worth more than any executive salary or fancy title. I've left you enough money that you'll never have to worry about finances again. You can keep teaching because you love it, not because you're stuck. You can leave that marriage if it's making you miserable. You have options now. Use them wisely. And Daniel, that prenup Jessica insisted on, best thing that ever happened to you. Not a penny of this inheritance is hers. I made sure of it. All my love, Mom. I read the letter twice, then a third time. My mom had known. She'd seen everything and had been planning for this moment. Amanda read over my shoulder and started laughing through her tears. Oh my gosh, Mom basically just gave you the ultimate revenge. She wasn't wrong. I'd signed divorce papers that morning. Papers based on a prenup designed to protect Jessica's assets. Papers that she'd rushed to file, probably worried I might try to claim some of her money in the divorce. But Jessica had no idea that Mom had just left me $2.1 million. And thanks to the prenup she'd insisted on, not $1 of it was marital property. It was mine. Completely. Totally. Only mine. Frank was smiling slightly. Helen anticipated this situation. She asked me to give you this other letter to share with your wife, well, soon to be ex-wife. After the divorce is finalized, he handed me a second sealed envelope with Jessica's name on it. Over the next few days, things moved fast. Amanda and I started the process of dealing with Mom's estate. The lawyer explained it would take a few months to fully settle everything, but he could start distributing funds from the liquid accounts fairly quickly. Jessica sent me daily texts about moving out of the apartment. She needed me gone by the end of the month so Brett could move in. Real classy. Didn't even wait for the divorce to be finalized before moving her boyfriend into our home. I started packing my stuff. Didn't need much. My clothes, some books, my laptop. I found a furnished short-term rental and moved in within a week. Left Jessica, the furniture, the kitchen stuff, everything we'd accumulated. I didn't need any of it anymore. The divorce moved through the system faster than expected. Uncontested divorces in our state can be finalized in as little as 30 days if both parties agree to everything. Since the prenup spelled everything out clearly, there was nothing to fight about. Well, nothing Jessica knew about anyway. I got the call from my lawyer on a Wednesday. The divorce was final. I was officially single. He asked if I felt okay about how everything had turned out. I told him I felt great. That night, I drove to Jessica's apartment, our old apartment, and knocked on the door. She answered, looking annoyed. What do you want? We're divorced. You don't get to just show up here. I know. I just wanted to give you something. I handed her the sealed envelope from Mom's lawyer, the one with her name on it. She took it suspiciously. What is this? A letter. You should read it. I turned to walk away, but stayed close enough to hear when she opened it. Call me petty, but I wanted to witness this moment. I heard paper rustling, then silence, then a sound like she'd choked on something. Wait, she called out. Wait, what is this? I turned back. She was standing in the doorway holding the letter. face completely pale. Is this real? Your mom left you over $2 million? Yep. Found out at the will reading day after you served me divorce papers at her funeral. Jessica's hands were shaking. But you signed the divorce papers. We're divorced. This is all yours thanks to that prenup you insisted on. Every penny is mine. Inheritances remain separate property. Remember, you wanted to protect your family's money from me. Worked out great. It protected my mom's money from you. I watched the realization hit her. She'd rushed the divorce, pushed me to sign quickly, probably worried I'd try to claim some of her commission income or future inheritance. She'd wanted to end things before I could get any of her money. Instead, she'd ended things right before I inherited a fortune. You knew, she accused. You knew when you signed the papers. I didn't. Actually, Mom never told me how much she had. The will reading was scheduled for Monday, but I signed your papers on Saturday. I had no idea what was coming. Jessica's face went from pale to red. You can't do this. This isn't fair. We can contest the divorce. On what grounds? You want it out? You served me papers at my mother's funeral. You made me sign them in a parking lot. There's nothing to contest, but the money is mine, is protected by the same prenup you insisted on to protect your family's assets. Funny how these things work out. I watched her process this, watched her realize she'd given up over $2 million because she couldn't wait one more week to file for divorce. I heard you're already living with Brett. Bet he's going to be disappointed to find out you're not the rich, successful real estate agent he thought you were. Daniel, wait, let's talk about this. Maybe we made a mistake. Oh, we made a mistake. You made a mistake when you cheated on me. Made a mistake when you walked out of my mother's funeral. Made a mistake when you called her death convenient timing. And you made a really big mistake when you pushed me to sign those divorce papers before asking if Mom had left me anything. Her neighbor had come out to see what the commotion was about. Jessica noticed and lowered her voice. Please, Daniel, we had good times. We can have them again. I made mistakes, but we can fix this. We had good times when you thought I might have potential to make more money. The second you realized I was happy being a teacher, you checked out. The only reason you're interested now is because I'm about to have more money than you. That's not true. It's completely true. If Mom had left me nothing, you'd be thrilled with this divorce. You'd be bragging to your friends about upgrading to Brett. But now that I'm actually worth something to you, suddenly you made a mistake. I pulled out my phone and opened my texts. Found the one she'd sent the morning of the funeral. See this? This is what you texted me about my mother's death. That it was perfect timing. You didn't even have the decency to pretend to care. And now you want me to believe you've changed. Jessica had tears running down her face. Real tears this time, not the fake ones she'd used when she needed something from me. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry about all of it. About your mom, about Brett, about everything. I believe you're sorry. Sorry you're not getting any of the money. Her face hardened. The tears stopped. There was the real Jessica. Your mom must have been laughing her head off writing that will, setting up her son to screw over his wife, ex-wife. And Mom wasn't screwing you over. She was protecting me. There's a difference. I walked back to my car. Jessica called after me, alternating between apologies and anger. I ignored all of it, got in my car and drove away from that chapter of my life for the last time. The aftermath was beautiful. Jessica's family found out about Mom's inheritance within days. Small-town gossip moves fast. Her parents were reportedly furious that she'd rushed the divorce. Her brother Kyle actually called me, trying to smooth things over and suggest Jessica and I explore reconciliation. I told him Jessica was living with Brett and seemed very happy with her choice. He hung up. Jessica tried calling multiple times. When I didn't answer, she sent emails, long ones, explaining how she'd made terrible mistakes, but we could work through them if I just give her another chance. How the thing with Brett was meaningless and she still loved me. I forwarded every email to my lawyer without responding. He found them hilarious and said they'd be useful if she tried to contest the divorce, which she couldn't. Brett, the boyfriend, apparently found out about the inheritance too. According to Amanda's friend, who knew someone who knew him, he broke up with Jessica within days. Guess he wasn't interested in dating a woman who'd just given up millions. Real stand-up guy. Jessica's real estate business took a hit when her reputation took a beating. Turns out people don't want to work with someone who served divorce papers at a funeral. Several clients dropped her. Her parents were reportedly helping her financially while she rebuilt her client base. Meanwhile, my life got exponentially better. I quit teaching, not because I didn't love it, but because I wanted to teach on my own terms. Used some of the inheritance to start a small tutoring business for underprivileged kids. Charge families based on what they can afford. Some pay full price, some pay nothing. I'm making a real difference in kids' lives without worrying about standardized test scores. Bought a modest house in a nice neighborhood, nothing ostentatious. Just a comfortable 3-bedroom with a yard, paid cash, no mortgage. Amanda and I used some of Mom's money to start a scholarship fund in her name. Full-ride scholarships for students from low-income backgrounds pursuing education degrees. Mom would have loved that. I took the trip to Japan I'd always wanted but could never afford. Spent 3 weeks exploring, started dating again. Met a woman named Claire at a community event. She's a librarian who makes about $45,000 a year and loves her job. She has no idea about the inheritance, and I'm not telling her yet. 6 months after the divorce, I got a text from Jessica's mom. She wanted to meet for coffee to clear the air. I agreed to meet her, curious what she'd say. She ordered some complicated drink and got straight to business. Jessica deeply regrets how things ended. She was going through a difficult time and made some poor choices. She made a lot of poor choices. I agreed, starting with cheating on me for 8 months. Her face pinched. Yes, well, that was regrettable. But people make mistakes. What matters is that she's learned from them. I'm sure she has. Good for her. Daniel, you and Jessica were good together before things got complicated. Maybe if you both tried again. You mean now that I have money? She had the grace to look embarrassed. I mean, now that certain financial stresses aren't a factor. The financial stress wasn't ever a factor for me. I was happy with my teaching salary. Jessica and your family were the ones who had a problem with it. She tried a few more angles, talking about family forgiveness. I listened politely and said no to everything. Finally, she got angry. You're being vindictive. You're punishing Jessica for making one mistake. One mistake? Let's count them. She cheated for 8 months. She insulted my career for 3 years. She walked out of the funeral. She served me papers the day after my mother died. That's not one mistake. That's a pattern of behavior. Everyone deserves a second chance. I gave her 3 years of second chances. I'm done giving chances to people who don't respect me. Jessica made one final attempt. She showed up at my tutoring center after hours. I was packing up when she knocked. Can we talk? Really talk. No lawyers, no family, just us. I let her in. I'm not here to ask for money. I know that's what you think, but I'm not. Okay, so, why are you here? To apologize. Really? Apologize? Not because I want something, but because you deserve an actual apology. I waited. I treated you terribly. You were a good husband. You were kind and patient and loving, and I repaid that by constantly criticizing you, trying to change who you fundamentally were. That was wrong. You deserved better. Yes, I did. The thing with Brett was inexcusable. I got caught up in this idea of what success looked like, and you didn't fit that picture. So, I found someone who did. But it was hollow. Jessica, I appreciate the apology, but it doesn't change anything. I know. I'm not asking for anything to change. I just wanted you to know that I see now what I had and what I threw away. Not your money. You, the person you are, the teacher who cares about kids, the man who took care of his mom. She stood to leave. I hope you find someone who appreciates you for who you are. I think I already have. She smiled sadly. Good, you deserve it. She walked to the door, then turned back. Your mom was right about me, wasn't she? She saw through everything from day one. Mom was good at reading people. Tell her I'm sorry too, even though she's not here to hear it. I think she knows. Jessica left. That was the last time I saw her. I heard she eventually moved to another city for a fresh start. As for me, life is good, really good. Teaching on my own terms, living in a house I own, dating a woman who loves me for me.